welcome to Saturday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today we're going to be trying a new puzzle by Dying Flutchman. Dying Flutchman is a regular on the channel because they produce the most wonderful Sudoku puzzles. Now this is a hybrid puzzle where we have to sort of fill in the Sudoku in the middle, but then it seems like we have to draw some sort of loop in the grid as well. It's called Simple Loop Sudoku. I've run through the rules once before I turned on the webcam, and I'm looking forward to reading them again. Let's just put it like that. Now, thank you so much if you joined us last night for our live stream of this game called The Last Cube. What a game that is! It is really, really cool. We actually, the developers of the game joined the chat as well, so we were blessed with their company. And yeah, anyway, I thanks so much. There was just a lot of positivity in the chat. It's lovely to see. And yeah, the video is available on the channel right now. I have been told I need to try a cryptic crossword that is appearing in the Independent today by Rodriguez, I think. I have not done that yet, but I will try to record that in the next few hours, and if I can, I'll upload that to the channel tomorrow. Other than that, what else do I need to mention? I know what I need to do. I need to say a very, very happy 17th birthday to Dunya. Dunya, I believe it is your birthday today. Your parents let me know this. I hope I'm correct, and I hope you've had an absolutely brilliant day, and very well, good luck on your forthcoming trip to Paris as well, which I'm sure you will enjoy. It is a wonderful, wonderful city. Now, anything else to tell you? I don't think so. Let's get on with the rules of this one, and here they are. We have got normal Sudoku rules apply. Draw a simple loop in the grid, i.e. a single closed loop that visits all cells except the ones containing a 5. So, okay, the loop must go horizontally or vertically from cell to cell without branching or intersecting itself. Grey cell clues outside the grid give the sum of all the cells between the border and the 5 in that row or column containing straight line segments. I'll carry on reading the rules, then we'll try and work out what this means. I have got an example as well, which hopefully will shed some light. White cell clues, that must be these things, outside the grid, give the sum of all cells between the border and the 5 in that row or column containing corner segments. So, look, let me show you the example. Maybe this is where we need to focus. It's a bit blurry, but I think we can study this and hopefully learn about the world. So I can see, look, there's a green loop that's being drawn in this grid. Let's try and understand the 0-4 clue. So that's saying, oh, actually that's quite straightforward. Yeah, okay, so that's saying that between the border and the 5 in the row, so that's the 5 in the row, there is actually only one digit. It is a 4, and the loop as it passes through that 4 is not turning. It's just going in a straight line. So that's why I think this digit is a 4 and this digit is a 0, because there are no turning cells between the edge of the grid and the 5 on the loop. Right, let's look at the 14-2 clue. So that, oh, can't even see that. Oh, is this the 5? Maybe that's the 5 there. Let's put the 5 in there. On the basis it's green rather than I can see the digit. So what's this saying? This is saying that there are cells totaling 14 on the loop in this direction. And there are, oh, I see, yes there are. So that's a corner of the loop, that's a corner of the loop, that's a corner of the loop, and that's a corner of the loop. And 1 plus 3 plus 4 plus 6 is equal to 14. And the 2 is on a straight line bit. That's really interesting. Let's just check the columns. 3 and 11, the 5 is here. So 4 plus 7 is 11, and that's on straight bits, and the 2 corners are 1 plus 2. Right, okay. So I do sort of understand this. Good grief. Now, do have a go at this. The way to play is to click the link under the video as usual. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. I get some given digits today, look. And these... Right, well those are not 5s, so we know that the loop must visit all of those cells. And we know, okay, so we know each box contains one digit which is not visited by the loop. Right, and we know therefore that that unvisited space, if you like, well, you could never have that cell. as a 5. Because if that's a 5, the loop would have to visit this cell, but then it could never get out. It would sort of come, it would go do, 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 and then it would find that it had to turn back on itself, which won't create a loop, it'll create a line. So, right, so I think what we shall do first is we shall identify all of those cells in the corners as being not, right, we're saying these are not 5s, and they are therefore loop. So I will use green to indicate cells that have a loop, that the loop enters. Now, right, so the loop enters all of the given digits as well. That must be true, because none of these digits is a 5. 35 here. What is this telling me? This is telling me that cells totaling 35 in this row have corners in them before we get to the 5. Right, well 35, even if everything was a corner, it would, the minimum I could make those 5 cells add up to would be 35. And in fact the 35 doesn't include the 5, does it? So it must be, if we're not allowed to include the 5 in those 5 digits, and we can't because we have cells totaling 35 on corners before we get to the 5, then we must need 6 cells. So those 6 cells at least are loop segment cells in this row. And then we could, hang on, no, I was about to say two completely contradictory things. I was about to say this could be a 5, and then I paused because 35 plus 5 is only 40, and the secret tells us that every single complete row of a Sudoku will contain the digits 1 to 9 once each, and therefore adds to 45. So I was thinking, if that was a 5, where's the 5 gone? But the 5 could be on straight line segments in this direction, and that could even explain why we've not been given clues on this side of the grid, because they would have to be zeros. Is that right? Something feels odd to me about that logic. I sort of don't want this to be a 5, but I can't articulate. It's just a feeling. It's not logic. I just don't want it to be a 5. Alright, okay. So where else should we look then? We've got 12 and 21 across the middle. 12 plus 21 is 33, plus the 5, wherever that lives, is 38. So there are clues or cells adding up to what did I say that was? 38, so 7. There are clues adding up to 7 in this row that are not clued, that either have to live there, or in a combination of those two cells. The top row, we've got a 7. Does that mean this can't be a 5? Yeah, okay, yes, that's a simple deduction. Okay, this can't be a 5, because if it was a 5, there couldn't be cells adding up to 7 before it in the row, so that's got to be green. And that means we can start to draw a loop. Now, I suspect you all know how to draw loops in our software, but if you don't, the way to do it is to turn this on, click the cog icon on the right hand side of the grid, make sure your pen tool is enabled. Mine is always enabled, but if you find that you haven't got the option to do something like this, which is this sort of square with a circle with a corner in it, it's that icon on the right hand side of the grid. If you do not have that icon, turn on your pen tool, and our magnificent programmer Sven, you'll find what little goodie he's hidden in his software, where you can actually do all of this sort of stuff. And you can click on the edges, look, and you can create X's and circles, and it's all very, very intuitive. You sort of just drag and click. Now, what does this mean? So this is straight line segments in this row add up to 7 before we get to the 5. Oh, and the same thing is going on there, look. Ah, yeah, okay, that cell. Oh, well, it is going on there as well. That can't be a 5, but this is a different type of clue. This is the corner clue. That one's the straight line clue, but the upshot is the same. That must be green, and therefore that must be a corner segment. So that could just be a 7. Or can it? Now I'm confusing myself, because if that's... Now, wherever the 5 goes in this row, let's put it there. Isn't it necessary there's going to be another corner? You can't just have one corner. You can't, yeah, that's weird. So you can't have one corner, because if you have one corner, how are you going to have one corner before the 5? There's going to have to be another turn. So actually you have to have 2 corners before the 5, which means that is not a 7 after all. So this is... But there can only be one corner in this row before the 5, because if there are 4 corners, there must be an even number of corners, and if there are 4 corners, you can't make 4 cells in the same row add up to 7. So there are 2 corners. Oh, no, right. Right, so maybe I use these, yeah, okay, so let's use the column totals, which are all quite large. Well, at least they're large enough that it's not possible we have a 5 in any of those cells. Obviously this one's not a 5, but those two, actually that one's not a 5 either, because there need to be cells summing to 24, or 23, or 10 before we see the 5 in this column, even if all the cells before the 5 were corner clues. So all of those get greened. Oh yeah, I should do this all around the grid actually, shouldn't I? So whenever there is a positive clue, in fact that's got to be at least 3 cells large. So those are all green. That could be a single 8, I suppose. That could be a single 9, but it still needs to be green there. 13 and 3. Well, ordinarily 13 plus 3 equals 16, which you could make in 2 cells, but I don't think you can with this, given these are separate clues. The 3 must need at least 1 cell, and the 13 must need at least 2 cells. So I think those 3 cells must be green. In that column we've got a 24. That must be at least 3 cells, but actually that cell also is green. So the 24 is getting pushed out to at least here. The 12 must be at least 2 cells. The 6 must be at least 1 cell. So we've actually got a bit of a picture developing. So one of those 3 cells is a 5. Look, yes, here we go. One of these 2 cells is a 5 in column 4. Now that, oh no, maybe this doesn't add much to the volume of information in the world of Sudoku. No, the 5 is in one of those 3, which we could have seen instantly just looking at row 4. So I was about to talk nonsense again. Now, what are we meant to look at here then? Okay, that's not a 5 in row 1, because if that's a 5, this is a turn, and there's no straight line segments at all before you hit the 5. That won't work. So the 5 in row 1 is a digit. That's got to be there. We'll award it its own colour, shall we? Yellow. Right, so yellow for 5s. This square here is now definitely green, because we can't have another 5 in this row. And the 5 is a corner in effect, therefore. So we can do some loop whoa, we can draw some loop segments. That must be a loop segment, and that must be a loop segment. Yes, and this is beautiful. Right, look at row 1. How could this turn? Well, it can't, because then this will turn, and again, there's no straight loop segments in this row. Every single cell on the loop is a corner, and that means this 7 clue should be a 0. So we must, I think, connect the loop up like that. And yeah, and we can do the same trick on the other side, but this time think about corners. If this turned, this would turn. Oops. And now you'd have 4 cells in row 1 that have to add up to 7, and that's impossible. Oh dear, I'm making a bit of a mess of deleting my marks. Ah! There we go. So that's also forced. Now, 23 must be at least 3 cells, so that's all of these are green. 10 must be at least... Oh. Yeah, hang on. That is a straight line segment, isn't it? So that's not even counted in this 10 clue. So that's got... So we must have at least 2 clues on corners before we get to the 5. So that's got to be green. Yeah, we're going to get the 5 in box 3. This is lovely. What about those 2 squares? Well, neither of these 2 squares could be the 5, because if we did put 5 here, that would require this cell to be not only to be a corner, but to be equal to 10, which won't work. So these 2 squares must be green. That must therefore be the yellow 5. That creates a corner. So now we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. Look. And now we've put loop segment in those 2 cells. So those 2 cells are not 5. That's a 5. Gets yellowed. Now, do we know which... Well, I'll tell you one thing we know. We know those 2 cells are now green. Now, what do we know? Oh no, now I've got a problem. Oh no, I haven't. Right, sorry, I was looking at this 10 clue and just thinking about, I've got to have 2 turning cells before this 5 in the column, so that those 2 cells must contain a turn in each of them. So we must put in a vertical line segment, given that we know the loop visits these cells. It's impossible not to have that. You know, if we did this, you can see we're going to close the loop and create straight line segments. So that's forced. Now, this cell here looks problematic to me. Yes, okay. How could the loop do this? It can't, because this is definitely loop. And the only way of completing that would be like that. And that definitely is not a single loop. We've now created, well, at least 2 loops. So this doesn't work. So that's got to go up. Oh no, but perhaps we don't know whether it might do that, I think, or it might do that. I'm not sure. Oh. Hang on, have I now got a problem in row 4? I keep thinking I've broken this puzzle. 35 at least, 40, and 2 cells there that are not counted in this clue. I'm just wondering, do we know these add up to 5 therefore? Is that what we're being told? Or is it possible within this 35? No, yeah, no, there cannot be a straight loop segment in these 6 cells, because if there was, we'd only have 5 cells at most to add up to 35, which is impossible given the 5 is not one of them. So every single one of these is counted in this 35 clue and is a corner, which means that we can do a whole load of loopiness in this row, because we must have horizontal loop segments like this. Oh dear, I'm making absolute horlicks of this. That's all forced. That and that can be x'd in because we can't have any straight loop segments. So we have to I don't know if we know which way these turn. But we do know that they do turn, obviously, each time. So we're going to have 6 cells that add up to 35. Plus 5 is 40. So these 2 do add up to 5 then. just by mathematics of the row, because the row adds to 45. So those are 1s, 2s, 3s and 4s. I love this puzzle already. Well, as you know, if you watch the channel, I'm a huge fan of when two different puzzles get sort of blended together. And this sort of thing, it just appeals to me no end. Now, how do we do this then? I want to get more 5s. Right, there's got to be a 5 in one of those two cells. Oh, yes, look, where does 5 go in this box? It goes in those two cells. Now that means we should be asking, well, there's lots of questions we can ask, but amongst those, I tell you what I can do. In fact, I'm just seeing loads of things all of a sudden. Right, if I get a 5 in a column, because you can't repeat the 5, the rest of the column must be green. The rest of this column must be green. The rest of this column must be green. So that's done some damage. But now we can ask where the 5 goes in row 9. It's got to be in one of those two cells. And that might be useful. No, I can do this. Right, where does 5 go in box 1? That's an interesting question, because just as I could complete columns, I've got a 5 in row 3, so those can't be 5s, and therefore a loop. So the loop, the 5 in box 1 is in one of these two, and look down this column. We've not put a 5 in it, so it must be in one of those two cells, and we know it can't be here. So that's a 5 in the corner. Doesn't get a song, but it is very gratefully received. Now that creates loads of cornering as well, because now this 5 is a corner, so we must do that. We can put in loads of greens, because the rest of this box now can't have a 5 in it. And now for our next trick, we will... What are we going to do now? Can we work out which way round these go? If that's a 5, you've got to do a great big loopy thing round there. Which can't see a problem with. If that's a 5, then this is a 5, and there's a loop coming along the bottom of the grid there. And this is a 9, so this is saying there's straight lines. Oh, so if that was a 5 and that was a straight line segment, that would be a 9. Okay. That's not in the right place. Right, this is beautiful. Right, that's not 5. Because if that's 5, although I can absolutely draw a line... Whoa, not that. I can I can draw that as a loop segment, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. This clue is broken, because that's not a straight line segment, it's a turny line segment. And we'd have to... So this cell here would need to be a turn and have an 8 in it, and it's definitely not got an 8 in it, because it is a straight segment. So that tells us, in fact, that this is not 5. And if it's not 5, we can green it. And that makes this yellowy and 5. And that makes that yellowy and 5. And this greeny and not 5. Okay, and now we can draw that loop segment and this loop segment. And okay, and now we can do some more greenage. That's got to be green. These have got to be green. Okay, and that's got to be a 9, and that does work because this is a straight line segment before the 5. Oh God, I keep thinking I've broken it, but I haven't. Look, this corner is now green, so that means I've got to visit the corner with the loop, which means I've got to do that. But now how do you get to this cell? well, I can't connect this like this because this would become a cul-de-sac. So I must immediately, oh my goodness, I must immediately visit this square by going up here. Oh, I'm having real difficulty there. That must turn and that must complete the loop. The 3 is a green cell and therefore has just become a corner. And now, what can we do next? We can... I don't know. That's the short answer. We can write an 8 into the grid. Right there. Because this 10 clue needs 2 corners. And those 2 cells that are the corners are those 2. So 2 plus 8 is equal to 10. So that's an 8. Which does diddly squat by the looks of things. Okay. Yeah, okay. Let's have a look back at the top row again. Because I know that I've got 2 7 clues in the top row, which apply to different bits of the loop. This 7 clue is applying to those 2 squares. Those 2 squares add up to 7. They're the straight line segments. This clue applies to those squares. They must add up to 7. But 2 and 5 as an option for 2 cells to add up to 7 is not available. So these must be 1 and 6 and 3 and 4. Which doesn't... Oh, try not to sneeze. That's 6 there. Eliminates 1 6 from there, so that's a 3 4 pair, which means this becomes a 1 6 pair. Okay, so the rest of this row is what then? It's got to be 2 7 8 and 9. And okay, and that's 2 8 there, so that's not 2 8. So this is a 7 9 pair, which means these are not 7 and 9. This is 2 and 8. I'm having a little bit of difficulty seeing these digits. Can I increase the size of the digits somehow? Oh, large digits is already on, so no, I can't. Okay. I think it's the digits are smaller because I've taken up more space with the outside clues on the grid. That's what's going to have happened. Okay, so what do we do now? 23 in corners before I get to this 5. Oh, so maybe I can do maths on this column. Sorry, I should have realised this. So 23 somehow up here. Plus 5 plus 9 is 37. Oh, right. So there are loop segments in this column totaling 8. I'm going to put that in, which are on straight segments. So that's, we need to find at least 1 cell down there, but possibly as many as 3 cells that are on straight bits. Now, what do we do now? That's the question. I don't know the answer. Okay. Where am I meant to look? 1, 2, 3, 4. I was wondering about counting loop segments entering the top right of the grid, but I can't see anything terribly clever there. Oh, this 8. That's got to be an 8, doesn't it? Because that... Oh no, that's wrong. That's not in the straight bit, that's in the bendy bit. So these 2 cells have to add up to 8. And they're not 3 5. Okay, so this is either 1 7 or 2 6. And that's not 2, so that's not 6. No, okay, that doesn't do anything. Right, what are we missing here? What are we missing? I'd love to be able to resolve these last 5s. So if that's a 5, that's a 5, and we get a corner here. If that's a 5, that's a 5, and we get a corner there. And 3. Hang on a minute. Do you remember earlier on we talked about you couldn't have one corner before the 5? I can't remember where I was looking at that. I think it was in a row, but now I'm looking at this column here and I'm wondering whether that 3 needs to be it needs to be 2 cells rather than 1 cell. I'm just going to draw some. Let's just make that a 5 for a moment. And let's say that there's a 3 on its own somewhere here, which couldn't be there. So let's say it's here. Now that implies that this cell is a turn. But if that cell's a turn, how, given the 5 is effectively a wall, and we're going up here towards a wall, we can't just carry on through the 5. That won't work. So there must be a second turn. Ah, yeah. This is right, isn't it? So that means, this is really clever. So that means, look at this clue collection here, 13 and 3. The 3 must be at least 2, well, it must be 2 cells. You can't make 3 cells add up to 3. But because we need 2 turns, that's 2 cells, that's 2 cells, so that can't be the 5. So that's not the 5, and therefore that's the 5. And now we can put that in yellow. It doesn't tell us what we have to do in this other box, but it does at least allow me to do 2 more greens. It tells me that square is an 8, because what we can say is that because we know there are 2 turns in this column in these cells, there's a 1 and a 2 somewhere in that string of digits, which means that can't be a 2. So that's an 8. That's a 2. That's not terribly surprising with that 24 clue at the top. So the 2 cells that add up to 13 are either, they can't be 5, 8, look. So there's either going to be a 4 and a 9 in that string. The 9 would have to be here and the 4 down here. Or a 6, 7. That's a corner, because so that's got to turn up now. Whoopsie. Oh, this is gorgeous, right? This 24 clue. Well, if I connect those up, I've only got 2 cells that would have to add up to 24 because we're looking at corners. So that doesn't work. So that means this is forced. Which presumably is important somehow, some way. Okay, now what do we do? This is saying there are 2 corners adding up to 12. There must be this is a really critical point. There must be an even number of cells with corners before a 5. So this 12 clue is we're not adding 3 cells to get 12, we're only adding 2 cells. Oh yeah, okay, so what have we got here? We've got 21 here. 21 plus 12. That's 33, plus 5 is 38, so we've got 7. Oh, I've already done that logic. I just didn't know how to do it then, and I still don't know how to do it now. I'm going around in circles. This is never a good sign, is it? Okay, so how do we resolve these last 5s? Oh, I was about to get excited then and say if that was a 5, that would have to be a 6. And I was hoping that that was in that column, but it's most certainly not. So if that's a 5, that's a 5. Oh, that can't be a 5. No, that's beautiful. Good grief. I should have spotted this immediately. I'm so sorry I didn't, but now I have spotted it. That's not 5. Because if that's 5, what on earth do we do with this line segment? It's got to take this cell, because otherwise this cell's never visited. And it's got to take that cell, or that cell's never visited. So we have to branch from this position. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, good grief. Right, so that's 5. I tell you what, Dying Flutchman knows what he is doing, that is for sure. So that means they're yellow, these are green, and we have all the 5s in the grid. I'm almost tempted to get rid of the green now, because, oh yeah, that's gorgeous. Right, there we go. So now what do we do? Now we've got a corner. This is most certainly a corner. So that, oops, so that's got to do that. We know the corner cells in this column add up to 3, so that cell is in and of itself a 1 or a 2. That's a corner, so we can put another thing in there, look. And what does that do to the world? Oh, yeah, I know what that does. Right, this can't go there. No, that's impossible. That line segment is impossible. I was just checking that it was impossible. That was my first reaction, and it is indeed impossible. Why can't this be true? Well, if this is true, how on earth do we make this 6 clue work? We need straight line segments in these 2 cells, or one of these 2 cells, that add up to 6. Well, don't know how we're going to do this, because this has now become a corner. And we can't, when we've just hit, and we're going along here and we hit the wall, so that's going to be a corner as well. So we're not going to have any line segments in these 2 cells that are straight line segments, and that won't work. So that must continue up there, which makes this a corner now. This is really beautiful. Okay, and now... Yeah, and now this can't turn, because that will create no corners again. If we turn now, we've got no corners in these 2 cells. So that must extend, that must extend, that must go up. Oh, that must do that, which I've just noticed. I should have seen that before. This is a corner. Oh, no. No, it's still okay. I thought I'd closed the loop, but I haven't. These 2 have not closed. That's a corner. This cell here is now a corner, so that's forced. Oh, that's a corner now, so that's that. I can draw that segment in, that segment in. This is a corner now, so we've got to enter that and exit. That's got to come down. This is getting done. This is really getting done. Yeah. Those 2 cells add up to 6, and they can't be 1, 5, so that's a 2, 4 pair. And that's a 2 at the top of the grid, so that's 2, that's 4. That's 1, because it's no longer able to be 2. So there's no 1 down here. And what do we do next? Oh, well, I'll tell you one thing we can do. These 3 squares have to include a domino that adds up to, well, it doesn't have to be a domino, but it has to be 2 cells that add up to 13. And they can't be 4, 9 now, or 5, 8. So these cells are exactly equal to 2, 6, and 7. Which presumably should be useful, but I can't see how. Okay, so which clues have we now used? We've actually used quite a lot of them. We've effectively used this because these are all corners and they're just going to be the other digits in the column, aren't they? So they are the digits 3, 9, and what's the other one? 4, I think. 4, 3, 4, and 9 to complete this column. So hopefully 3 plus 4 plus 9 plus 8 is 24, and it is. So that makes sense. So this column is basically done. That 23 is corners, and I can see 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh. Okay. Oh, and we've got the 8 here as well. 10, we've done that clue. 10 from corners. We've got those two could add up to 10. No, no they can't. Right. Good. Right, this is powerful actually. This clue is important now. Look at this column. These two cells. Now, if these were the only corners in this column, this digit, they would add up to 10. So this is low, so this would have to be 6, 7, 8 or 9. It's not 6, it's not 8, and it's not 7 or 9. That doesn't work. So there must be more corners in this column, and the only two opportunities are these two cells. So these two contain a corner, which means they both contain corners, so we can make that line segment work. Now, okay, that's really interesting, because we still don't know, at least I don't think I know, whether this carries on there or whether it bends in and creates the corners that way, or whether the corners come out this way. But what we do now know is I've got 4 corners here adding up to 10. So each of these digits is 1, 2, 3 and 4. Which means this is not 1 or 2, and that's a 7, and that's a 1, and that's a 7, and that's a 9. Oh, come on. So now we've got, that's not 8, so that must be 8, and that must be 6, and that must be 1, and that must be a 3 or a 4, so that must be a 3 or a 4. And now there's a 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple in this box, so whatever that is the same as that. We know those two digits added up to 5, so that's now a low digit. So this is a 1 or a 2. Okay. What does that mean? I don't know is the short answer, but it was quite exciting while it was going on. Oh no, that's fine. So this clue's done. 1 plus 7 does equal 8. This, I should probably, let's actually label all the clues we've actually done. We've done that clue, we've done that clue, we've effectively done these clues. Well, effectively, we need to know where the corner is there. And that corner cell is going to have a 2 in it. We haven't done the 23. We have done that 10, and we've just done this 10. So all of those clues are done. I want to say this 35's done as well, because I just have to remember those two add up to 5. Oh, I don't like that colour, purple. So I've got to play with a 21 clue. Oh, that clue's done. Sorry, didn't spot that one. A 12 clue. Oh, that 12 clue. Let's look at this clue. Those two cells are corners, and they've got to add up to 12. And they can't be 4, 8 or 5, 7. So they are, they're 3 and 9, and there's a 9 here. So that's 9, that's 3, that's 4. That's 6, I've just noticed. That was available as soon as I got this 1, but I didn't see it. 2 has to be in one of those two cells. 4 has to be in one of those cells. 2, 3, 4. So this clue now becomes purplified. So we've now done even more clues. This 21 clue's troubling though, isn't it? Because I can't use 9 in it anymore. This is straight line segments. Oh, but these were corners. This is I might have broken the puzzle here. How can we possibly... As these two are corners, they are not counted in this 21 clue. So... If these turned this way and this way, I'd have to have 3 cells here. These 3 cells would all have to be straight line segments. And I don't think that's in any way possible, because this would be a corner. No, that doesn't work. This tells us how this moves. So this has to turn outwards like this. That has to be, whoopsie, that has to be a straight line segment. These three line segments, and they must be three because we can't get 4 or 5 in here, straight line segments must be 6, 7 and 8 because 9 is not available. So that means this square is 6, 7 or 8. This square, now is it that one? Well, hang on, no, that's got to extend now. So that's definitely a straight line segment. And if that turns, okay, so we don't know. We don't know whether this collapses in here and then this will be the 6, 7 or 8, although no, that can be a 7 or an 8. Or whether this turns down. Oh, we do know. Oh, no, we do know. How could this do that? That's impossible because I'm going to create a tiny little loop here. That won't work. So that's nonsense. So this has to stop, turn in here. This segment is now forced. That's a corner. Oh, that's a corner. Here, this is a corner. So that's forced. I've now got a loop. I've almost got a loop on the right side of the grid. It's almost completed. It would be completed if I did that. So we're not going to do that. We're going to turn there, turn there, turn there, turn, whoopsie, turn there and turn up there. And I think that is the loop done. I'm just going to check. Yeah, that looks like a loop. It's not hit any 5s. I think I've visited all the cells. Now we know this digit is a 6, 7 or an 8 because that's a straight line segment. So the other digits I've got in this row are 1s, 2s and 4s, I think. So that's got to be 1, 2 or 4. It's not 1. There's a 1 here. That's got to be a 1, sort of a naked single. So this is not 1. So now these 3 squares have got to be 6, 7 and 8 by Sudoku, and that's not 6. So, 1 is in one of these 2 cells, so 1 is there. So that means that's 4, because we know those added up to 5. That's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 3. This square's not 4, this square's not 3. This is a 2, so that seems to have to be a 4 now. Where does 4 go in that box? I think it's got to go there. Where does 4 go in that box? It's got to go here. And come on, don't stop now. We're doing well. This clue I've not used, have I? So that's 23 in turning cells in this column before the 5. So the turning cells are that one and that one. So we've only got one cell which is straight, and that's going to be the 8. So that's an 8. This is just sensational setting. There's a 7 here, that's a 7, that's a 6. Good grief. 4 and that's a 9 by Sudoku. That's got to be the 4. These squares here are 2, 6 and 9, which are probably resolved somehow, but let's have a look. No, this 8 clue is still referring to the 1 and the 7, but now we need an 8 in the column, and that's got to go here. So those 2 squares have got to be 6 and 7, which we can do. There's a 6 here, so that's 6, that's 7. This column needs 1s, 2s and 3s in it, which we can... I'm not sure if I can do that actually. That's not 2, that's not 3, and that's not 1. They're almost certainly resolved somehow. I just can't see how to do it straight away. What about those? They are 1, 3 and 8. So 1, 3 and 8 here. That's not 3, that's not 1, that's not 8. So in this column we still need 2s, 7s and 9s. Okay, I'm being very unlucky here, I think, because I keep finding little triples that don't get resolved. So that's... So I've got 2, 3, 9 triple there in the... Oh, right, what have we not done? Ah, I know what we haven't done. That square is the corner that makes up this 3 clue, so that's got to be a 2. Which doesn't. Oh yeah, it does. Now that's got to be a 7 and that's got to be a 6. So that's not a 6. 7 must live in one of those little cells. And okay. Alright, so we take stock now. We've definitely done this clue. We've definitely done this clue. This clue. That clue. I've still done it. That clue. Yeah, that clue. This 23 is done. Because the only thing this 23 was telling us really was the nature of this 8, wasn't it? This 24 is done. So it should just be Sudoku. That's my contention now. I hope that's right. Oh, this 9 is seeing that cell. So that's 6. That's 2. That's 9. That's 2 by Sudoku. So we need, in this row, we need 1s, 3s and 6s. And there's a 3 and a 6 already in the column. So that's 1. That's 3. That's 8. That's 1. That's 6. And that's not 6. So this is 6 here. These two squares have got to be a 3 and a something. A 3 and a 4. And there's a 3 at the top. So 3 and 4 go in. And those two squares have got to be 7 and 8. Somehow that's not resolved, which seems strange. I've got a 7-8 pair in this column now, but no, there is a 3, sorry. I'm missing a 1 actually in that column. That's got to go there. So that's a 3, that's a 2, that's a 1, that's a 9, that's a 3, that's a 9, that's a 7, and that seems to have to be 2 now. We haven't put 8 in this row. Ah, that 8's beautiful. That does that and that. I've not put 7 into this box, and if I've not made a mistake, that's a 9. And that might be the puzzle finished. It looks a bit untidy, but I'm just going to click tick. Yay! Did it! Oh, that was absolutely beautiful. I loved that puzzle. I would love to do another puzzle like that, because that was very, very interesting. I'm a big fan of loop drawing puzzles generally, you know, back from the days of Slitherlink and things like that, but this was sensationally clever in terms of the way that it's sort of the Sudoku and the loop building interacted in ways that were just genuinely interesting throughout. There's so much cool logic. The fact that you have to have 2 corners before a 5, I mean, I should have probably understood that very quickly and plainly didn't. But once I did understand that, that's so powerful. Gosh, I'm going to be interested in the comments on this one. I hope you all had a go. I hope you got through it. Let me know. I do enjoy the comments, especially when they're kind. And we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.